Rick, so great to have you back here on Mea Culpa. There's
Absolutely,
nobody
brother.
that I needed more than you right now at this moment. You know, there's so much going on all at exactly the same time. So let me just jump right into it. All right. And let's start where it's the wettest and the darkest right now. And I'm talking about Texas. How much blood do you think is on the hands of the political leaders who literally gutted funding for the National Weather Service and NOAA? I mean, because these weren't just floods. They were predictable tragedies.
That's right.
Were these deaths preventable in your eyes, or were we just accepting collateral damage now?
Look, Michael, I truly believe that there was a meaningful chance that we could have saved a lot more lives if the National Weather Service had been fully staffed in those offices. And if we hadn't had the National Weather Service gutted by Doge, gutted by Russell Vought and Project 2025, trying to sell off the National Weather Service to a private company, I think all those factors. Look, storms in the Deep South are rough and terrible, and people are going to die even with the best warnings, even with the best advance notice. This lacked almost any advance notice, and frankly, even at the state level, the Texas legislature last year was bragging how they had killed a bill to fund local communication systems for disasters and emergencies. So there's a lot of blame to go around, but I think a meaningful fraction of those lives could have been saved if there had been a legitimate effort on the part of the federal government to not slash the National Weather Service to pieces.
You know, it's funny because when Doge, run at the time by Elon Musk,
Yep.
first started to slash both NWS and NOAA, the first thing everybody turned around and said is, you do realize that by doing this, that you are placing the public in
Correct.
serious jeopardy. Now, as you just said, Texas is a hotbed for these types of natural disasters. You know, everybody sees Texas as like a very hot and a dry state, but there's areas that are right within these flood zones, including this specific area.
Houston and Dallas are notoriously flood prone.
Yes. Now, and this is a also historically red district. Didn't they realize they were harming their own constituents?
They didn't care, Michael. The whole philosophy of MAGA is that you don't have constituents anymore. You have one constituent. His name is Donald Trump, and that is a reality I think that we have yet to grapple with in this country in a lot of ways. That the entire Republican Party is now structured around the idea that they don't work for the men and women who elect them. They work for one guy at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and you saw it with the big bill. You saw it with Doge. The member of Congress for this area, I promise you can go back and find quotes about Doge and Elon, how great it is, and we're going to cut the government down. And at the end of the day, there's a connection between. Look, NOAA is a small agency. National Weather Service is a small part of a small agency. Their budget is $1.4 billion a year. There are single billionaires who will receive a bigger tax cut now because of the big bill than the entire budget of NOAA. So, they made a decision, and these members of Congress who have been behind all this and praising all this and the Doge caucus, all that garbage, they knew what they were doing. They knew what they were getting into.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because thousands and thousands of people were caught off guard. Neighborhoods submerged, summer camp destroyed, families lost. And yet, we're the richest country on earth by far. How does the same government that spends billions and billions and billions of dollars on, say, things like surveillance drones,
right,
how do they plead poverty when it comes to something as important as weather forecasting?
Look, this because unfortunately they found programs with the word climate in them, and so since the oil and gas guys and the Project 2025 guys are funded by the oil and gas guys, they went out and they said, okay, well, if it says climate, it must mean climate change. It must be against us, and we're going to kill it. And so that was how they justified it. But 99.9% of what the National Weather Service and NOAA do is the routine, basic bitch, day-to-day forecasting stuff, the routine weather alerts that people across the country in various places depend on, whether it's wildfire stuff in California or tornadoes in the Midwest or floods in the Deep South or hurricanes. That's what they do. It's not. It wasn't political until the Project 2025 guys made it political.
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. Let me ask you this: you think it's mismanagement, or you just think it's willful disregard for public safety?
No, I think what they did, Michael, they set up a reduction of the headcount there. They said to a lot of people, we're either going to fire you or we're going to give you a severance deal. And so a lot of people took the severance deal. They did fire a lot of people on top of that. So you had real gaps in the National Weather Service forecasting offices in Kerr County and in Texas. People had taken the deal. They were like, well, I don't want to get fired, so I might as well take a 6-month severance package, whatever it came out to. It's not that they don't understand the consequences of it, it's that they don't care. So it's not mismanagement here. This is a lack of manpower. There were not people able to cover overnight warnings anymore and things like that. This goes right back to Project 2025 and Doge and Elon and all that garbage.
And this is exactly like what happened at the airports, right? When they just didn't have enough individuals working the towers. So
right, they made the same kind of offer at the FAA, and so you end up with critical jobs going empty because people are like, well, I could be fired in 2 weeks, or I can take 6 months of severance. Yeah. I know what 99% of people are going to do when they get that threat.
Absolutely right. So when you look at how budget cuts and deregulation and ideological contempt for science intersected in Texas, can't we just draw a straight line from MAGA policy to those drowning in their homes?
Yes, 100%, Michael. Look, the idea that you're gonna cut NOAA because you think it's a hotbed of climate activism when it's really a bunch of weather nerds, that's just because they hate government inside the MAGA universe. They hate it so much, and they will do anything they can to break it. And they successfully broke it. They broke it. This is on the White House. It's on Russell Vought from Project 2025, is now at the OMB. It's on Elon Musk. It's on Doge. It's on Trump. It's on a White House that is, at the same time, they're going to cut the warning systems for natural disasters from NOAA and National Weather. They're also going to cut FEMA, which helps clean up the results of those natural disasters. It is an ideological trap that they put themselves in, and they just don't care, Michael. That's the secret here, is they don't care what happens. They don't care if people get hurt. They just don't.
I mean, it's gut-wrenching. It breaks your heart when, like I said in my Substack the other day, I didn't want to know the names of these children at Camp Mystic. I didn't want to see their faces. I didn't want to know who their parents are, not because they're not beautiful young children from all over the place and that the parents are, doing X, Y, and Z for the summer and wanted to send their kids to a place where they could run around and have a good time. I didn't want to know their name because they're deceased. I don't want to hear these tragedies. And when the tragedy is something that could have been avoided, I don't say that none of this would have happened. As you rightfully pointed out, People die all the time, sadly, from these natural disasters. By the way, no different than people die from the common cold every single year. But you know what we do with the common cold? You get the vaccination on that one, on the flu influenza, or you treat it. Here's the same thing. Science is real. And I have no idea why these right-wing leaders frame natural disasters continuously as acts of God, while seriously actively dismantling the tools that we use to predict, to prepare, and to save lives.
Yep.
Is this theological spin just a convenient dodge for governmental negligence? What's really behind this bullshit?
Well, let me say this. They're caught in that classic contradiction of of sort of end times evangelicals, and this belief that everything is God's intention and God's will. Say what you will, but again, these are people who represent the people that are now deceased. These are people who are parties to dismantling both the prediction and the recovery side of disasters in this country, and it's so dark and so hateful in my mind because they don't connect the loss of life and the tragedies with the irony of their belief in a good and powerful and omnipotent being. We, regardless of what you think about free will and everything else, and there are a lot of things you could just say, oh, it's God's will, inshallah. But as humans, we try to do things to mitigate the suffering of children and of the weak and of those in danger. And these guys don't care about that stuff, Michael. They just don't.
You see, it's funny because I grew up in a yeshiva, believe it or not, with yarmulke, with tzitzit, the whole 9 yards, up till 5th grade. And I remember always hearing about God's will, right? It's an act of God. That concept to me is, and always has been, very foreign. Why? Because one thing that mankind has proven is that through science, you could change what historically has been God's will, right? So somebody hypothetically in the past had tuberculosis. They were history. That person had an infection. They were fucking gonzo. Today, you call up your doctor, he sends you a prescription of antibiotics, right? A Z-Pack 5-day, you shit yourself for a little bit, your stomach hurts, you're a little nauseous, but boom, in 3 days you're feeling like $1 million. You take the extra 2-day on the Z-Pack, and you know what? Boom, you're gone. That same condition would have killed you 100 years ago.
I have consistently, take it more from the Catholic side of this, but I have consistently looked at the progress of science. If you believe in a good and loving God, then the progress of science and medicine is a manifestation of that has helped the condition of humanity. And I don't think, again, there is a weird evangelical strain of the end times with a lot of these folks that I will never understand. That will make an excuse and say, oh, it's just what God wanted. And these are the same people also, by the way, who really, 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 really think that the government does too much, think that the government is too intrusive, think that the government is a force for evil. I'm sorry, I have trouble believing there's a thing where saving lives is something that God would look down upon.
I'm with you on that 100%. But Rick, you've called Trumpism weaponized indifference. You see this flood disaster as yet another example of how cruelty and neglect are not bugs in the system, but rather the actual point?
I think in this case, it's interesting in this case because I heard some stuff from around the Republican world where he apparently got kind of lit up about providing disaster relief like immediately People in Texas, even Republicans behind the scenes were like, what the fuck? Make this happen today, dude. This is really bad. And I think he is largely indifferent to human suffering. And I think, a lot of these people that say, oh, we're going to get rid of FEMA and all this are indifferent to it. But I do think that in cases like this, especially with like Camp Mystic and the visuals of it, they'll react because they don't want to take the political hit. I don't really think they care about the humanity of it. I think they care about the politics of it.
Well, that's really...
Which is even more grotesque in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I truly... I'd like to say I hope it's not true. I'm so torn right now because, yes, the graphics are just horrific. Hey, Rick, let me just jump to a different topic for a second. I want to talk to you about the so-called Big Beautiful Bill.
Sure.
Which, honestly, I mean, let's just be honest amongst ourselves here. It sounds more like a mattress sale, not a national policy. Am I not right? I mean, when I first heard it, I was like, it sounds like something. Yeah, come on down for the Big Beautiful Bill. We're going to be selling you the mattress over here for 50% off. You can come, you can lay down on it and stuff. And I was sitting there and I was like, I mean, in all fairness, it slashes disaster preparedness. It funds literally these pet border projects. How did protecting Americans from actual threats like this flood become a line item sacrifice for this political theater that we live through every single day?
Because the political theater is what they live for in MAGA. That's all they care about. They want the spectacle that Trump provides them. They want the bullshit. They want the idea of that the world revolves around Trump's will and his statements, and unfortunately for the people in Texas, it'll be worse in the future. This will get worse. And the other part of this is DHS now has a bigger budget than the FBI. And they're spending 99% of their resources, and disaster stuff is under DHS. Okay. Like Coast Guard and FEMA are under DHS. But DHS is using 99% of its resources to put masked cops in the street to arrest people and not to focus on what I think people would think would be a primary mission. I will say the Coast Guard performed heroic service in Kerr County. Absolutely dramatic. And that's the kind of thing that we got to kind of remember. The people who work in FEMA and the Coast Guard and the National Weather Service, they're like, they believe in their mission.
They don't care if you're Republican or could you imagine they didn't show up
that guy
and
that
say
saved
to
165 people wasn't asking for a party registration card.
Right. That was the point I was going to make, and it always irritates me when people start saying that this is a Republican issue, it's a Democratic issue. It is not. It is an American issue. But hey, Rick, let me ask you: isn't it always funny how fiscal conservatism only kicks in when you're talking about things like weather, satellites, school lunches, public health, right? And
it's an amazing coincidence.
Never, ever, ever about shit like yachts, war toys, aircrafts, billionaire tax loopholes.
I mean, we added $186 billion to the Pentagon budget, which is now $1 trillion. Now, look, when I was in the Pentagon, our last budget was considered insane, and it was $221 billion.
Right.
We added almost as much this one year as we spent during the late 90s, which is bonkers. But that money is never questioned. There's no look, I want a safe, a strong national security as much as the next guy. But this is madness, what is going on. It is absolute nutso what is going on now.
What does that say then about the GOP's actual values? I mean, if you could care more about yachts and war toys and aircrafts and tax loopholes for billionaires more so than public health or children being hungry at school lunches, right?
Right.
What does it say about their values? And more importantly, why is anybody backing it?
Look, there are two cultures politically in our country now, Michael, and one of them is the MAGA Trump culture that is very much about punishing people for being poor, punishing the weak and the sick, because there's something fucked up in their brains about how people should be valued in the world. And I can't, philosophically, I have a lot of trouble trying to reconcile how twisted that shit is, because it is fucking twisted. It is fucking twisted. It is sick. And I come at this, and you and I are in different ends of the ideological spectrum on some things, but I come at this as a former Republican and a conservative, and I look at this and go, what universe do you think this is where Ronald Reagan would have wanted, folks? Because it's crazy talk.
Yeah. I mean, what universe is it when you have a bill, meaning the big, beautiful bill, that was marketed by this administration as making America safe, right, sovereign, and strong? Meanwhile, while they're marketing this bill as safe, sovereign, and strong, Texans are floating down streets that used to be sidewalks. You think that this is a moment when people finally wake the fuck up and realize that slogans don't save lives? Investments in infrastructure do?
I wish that was the case. But again, I go back to the fact that while this is happening at the federal level, the guys in the Texas legislature, look, the Texans freeze to death but this is another thing people don't realize. Texans freeze to death every winter because their power grid sucks so badly and they won't upgrade it. And they voted happily. And literally, folks, they bragged about it, that they had killed a bill to help local communities build infrastructure to do emergency communications for fires and wildfires and floods and storms. It doesn't seem sane to any of us who are more or less normal people, but this is what they are, Michael. We have to, I mean, that's one of the things. It's like, there's always a question like asking Republicans, is this who you really are? And for a long time, they would sort of look around and go, but now kind of is who they really are.
Yeah, I just can't accept that, but.
Oh, believe me, I can't either. It's shocking. And it's like a really painful example of humanity sort of gone off the rails, of people who really, I mean,
those that are entrusted with our safety, the elected officials, to literally gut things like NOAA, to gut things like the NWS, to gut, the FAA. All you're doing is you're putting the American citizen and others in harm's way every single day for no reason whatsoever other than this horseshit line of fraud, waste, and abuse. Let me be very clear about something. When I watch and I listen to this big, beautiful bill, and I've read a big part of it, it's a lot of pages, by the way, and I sit there and I'm like, you want to talk about fraud, waste, and abuse? Why don't you start at the top? Don't start with cutting this. How about going after those individuals, like in the medical field, that are billing the shit out of Medicare and Medicaid fraudulently? How about go after them? They just caught like 300 different companies for over, I think it was like $10 billion. Imagine the amount of fraud. And you're going to really tell me that by cutting people over there at Medicare and Medicaid, that you're going to catch these individuals? All you're doing is you're stealing from Peter to pay Paul.
Look, it's the classical problem. It's like, yes, is there waste, fraud, and abuse in government? Sure.
Yes.
Is it a problem that is at scale? No. Because weirdly, we've actually gotten pretty good in this country at catching fraud, waste, and abuse in government, folks, over the years. And while it still may exist, it's not 50% of the budget or 25% of the budget. It's maybe 1% or 2% of the budget. Should we go after that stuff? 100%. But should you kill the rest of the programs that Americans depend on because you are so obsessed with trying to make an excuse that has fraud, waste, and abuse? Because that is the excuse. It's not a reason, it's an excuse.
It's a tagline. But
it's marketing.
It is. That's all that is. It's marketing. In your view, Rick, is this bill the most cynical example yet of how MAGA Republicans have abandoned governance in favor of symbolism and spectacle?
By far.
Literally legislating for headlines, not for people.
100%, Michael. And the true story here of this bill is it's going to blow out the deficit. It's going to increase the debt. It's got $1 jillion of spending in it that are for programs that are fraud, waste, and abuse, that are for pork and special favors and lobbyist-driven outcomes. It is a bill that if Barack Obama had proposed this exact bill word for word, Republicans would be screaming their heads off and tearing their hair out in the streets.
Unbelievable, right? So look, on to the freak show, right? the Elon Musk versus President Trump, right? Battle of we'll call them Battle of the Billionaires Part 2.
Right.
Because you, Rick, you've worked on campaigns. You know egos.
Oh,
Is
yes.
this a genuine ideological war? A clash of empires, or just two guys with massive egos trying to out-alpha each other in public?
Look, Michael, I have to tell you, if I was looking for two of the top 10 men with giant egos in the world, these would be at least 1 and 2. I'm not sure which order. I think Trump is probably number 1, but Musk is right there with him. I have to say, I really believe that what Musk is doing is probably just, jerking himself off. But there is a potential, if he did it right, that would cause a massive amount of damage inside the GOP. I don't know or think that he'll do it right, but that possibility is certainly there.
I see it just a tiny bit different here.
Okay.
Right? And yes, I will acknowledge that both Trump and Musk have large egos. In fact, I believe everybody in Washington, D.C. has an inflated ego. But what I see and what I wrote about in my Substack, I think Elon Musk is making one of the stupidest self-inflicted wounds that any human being could possibly make. I called it. Musk is taking a Nerf gun to a military fight, right? To a gunfight. He cannot win. And I had this debate the other day on Political Beatdown with my buddy Ben Meiselas and so on. This is not a fair fight. This is a Nerf gun versus a bazooka. And as I described it, this is kind of like the fight is kind of like Mike Tyson in his heyday, showing up to a nursery school, grabbing a hold of a kid who's got finger paint on, all right, and challenging him to a bare knuckle brawl. Elon Musk controls hashtags and a bunch of Reddit jerk-offs. Donald Trump controls not just the military, he controls the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, he controls IRS, the FAA, the FCC, he controls everything, including the nuclear codes. This is not a fair fight.
They're already, Michael, they're already fucking with Elon's contracts. And who's surprised by this? Anybody who's surprised by this has literally not been paying attention. That Donald Trump will use and abuse power to get what he wants. I mean, this is like 101 shit.
Yeah, it's true. Let me ask you this, because look, I know Trump probably better than anybody, and
for sure.
I called this end of the bromance a long, long time ago. I said it was going to be over. And I said as well that Trump is going to go after Elon's money. And then I believe Bezos and Zuckerberg down the road as well. The same way Mohammed bin Salman did it to the royals in Saudi Arabia.
Correct. He will eventually get pissed off and hammer them.
Yes. Trump sees weakness as blood in the water. And I know this better than anybody. I was part of that.
You've been that blood.
I have been, right? Does he view Musk, in your opinion, as a threat to his cult of personality dominance? Or do you think this is just a long con to ultimately humiliate, absorb, or discard him like all the others that he's used as props?
So I have a theory of this case, Michael. It's a little different. I think Elon has more power than Elon realizes, because there are three things in the world that control how the MAGA base thinks: Fox News, Twitter, and Facebook. Cast Facebook out for a second. It's not the relevant question here. Elon Musk can control what the MAGA folks are seeing on Twitter. So if he put his thumb on the scale this week and said, hey, people are going to get served much more Epstein content and much less MAGA content, he has powers that Trump doesn't fully understand, and that I don't think even Elon recognizes how much damage he could do if he got into that space. Now, will he do that? I don't know. Who knows? I don't know if Elon's doing professional wrestling or if he's actually fighting a guerrilla war. But look, if he does form this third party and goes out and runs libertarian, conservative, small government, fiscal responsibility candidates in the general election, he could really hurt Trump. He could hurt the Republican caucus is what he could hurt more than Trump.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, the way I see it, Elon Musk made that first initial Epstein comment. He was kind of told to back down.
Yeah,
it became a real bloodbath between him and Trump on that issue. And then he was silent on it for about 3-4 days, but he can't help himself. He went right back to the topic. I've been through a lot, personally, professionally, physically, and I don't say this lightly. When it comes to needing a rest, I don't mess around. And that's why I'm telling you about something that actually works. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet. It's been my go-to when I want to drop the bloat. I want to feel sharper. And yeah, I want to look like I've got my act together, even if everything else is on fire. And look, so summer's here. So maybe you want to set some goals, drop a few pounds, get your energy back, actually feel good in your own damn skin. But let's be real. Without structure and science, those goals stay wishful thinking. And that, my friends, is where Prolon comes in. Prolon is a plant-based nutrition program. Soups, snacks, teas, and drinks, all designed to keep your body in fasting state while still nourishing it. That triggers deep cellular rejuvenation. Yeah, it's like the Nobel Prize winning kind that helps you target fat loss, support lean muscle, boost energy, and reset your metabolism. I mean, it's like a total internal cleanse without the starvation. And the new Prolon Next Gen, it's even better. 100% organic, richer taste, ready-to-eat meals, all developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by top medical centers. I mean, this isn't just some wellness gimmick. It's the real deal. So no matter the season, when I'm craving a real rest, Prolon is the only nutrition program that works for me. It's convenient, backed by Nobel-winning science, and again, it works. And now you can try the brand new Prolon Next Gen with a deal just for Mea Culpa listeners. You're going to get 15% off site-wide plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day nutrition program. So just visit prolonlife.com/Mea Culpa. That's Prolon, PROLONLIFE.com/Mea Culpa to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. So give your body the rest that it's been begging for and do it the right way with Prolon.
He's the richest man in the world, and therefore he has this belief that
He's
that
immune. He's invincible.
That he's right, that he can do whatever he wants, that he has no consequences. And Trump is in many ways the most powerful man in the world. He feels the same way. He thinks both of them think nothing can hurt them politically or personally. And man, that's a bad assumption to make at any point.
Yes, but I'd rather be in the position of the president than I would with
Elon
Musk. Right?
Michael, as 120%. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, as I wrote in my Substack the other day, you are never richer than the government, meaning in this case, Elon Musk is not richer than the United States government, nor is he more powerful than the president of the United States, especially not a president like Donald J. Trump, who has figured out how to absorb all of the power of government, both financially and legislatively. But
correct.
This is where I believe that Elon gets decimated. Literally decimated, and it's all self-inflicted. So I really don't feel bad for the guy. But Rick, hey, from your vantage point, who do you think stands to lose more in this cage match? You see, Musk, right, whose companies obviously rely on public trust and investor confidence, or Trump, because you brought this up, which is what's making me think this way. He is somebody who has relied upon the followers of X and the Tesla followers and so on to build his base.
Mm-hmm. Look, I think Elon financially, actually Elon has one hole card here that you can't replace. If there were a substitute for SpaceX with the Falcon rocket, which is like 90% of all of our stuff for the military and for the government goes into orbit on a Falcon rocket. It's actually legitimately a really good platform. There is no substitute for it. Nobody else builds it. The only other people that launch that many rockets are Russia, and that ain't going to work. So Trump kind of can't fuck him on that. He could screw him on the rest of SpaceX's business, all the rockets that blow up all the time. They could just say, you can't do that anymore. And that's where Elon's future is. That's where Elon could get hurt. But I really do believe that Trump could take some damage over this entire, if Elon decided to tweak Twitter to start hurting Trump could take some damage from it. I don't think Trump has got more power, but he's not invulnerable to damage. Would it kill him politically? No, but Trump's ego gets pretty delicate, and if Elon decided to put his thumb on the scale at Twitter, he could do some harm.
Yeah, I mean, he would go down from a 28% approval rating to a 20% approval rating, right? And that would, of course, bother Trump. If he goes down 1 point, he gets bothered. But I don't see it. I got to be honest. I have sat for hours trying to figure out, putting one versus the other in this steel cage match.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out how Musk can actually hurt Trump. And I think, by the way, as it comes to SpaceX, I think there's a million things that the government can actually do in order to turn around and to
Trump could
put SpaceX out of business.
Trump could nationalize SpaceX.
He could easily.
He could go under Defense Production Act and say, this is mine. It's vital to national security.
Take every employee, right?
Yep.
Just plain and simple.
No, it won't be. Look, I don't think either one of these two fuckers comes out of this, unscathed. But again, it reminds me of what Charles de Gaulle was asked once in the 1950s, like, well, you say you're developing a nuclear capacity for France, but you'll never have as many nukes as Russia. You could never kill them. And he said, no, but I could tear off Russia's arm or Russia's leg with my nuclear capacity. And I think that is somewhat where Musk is at right now. He can hurt Trump. He can't destroy Trump. Trump could deport Elon. He could start investigating all of his companies. There's a million things Trump can do to cause Elon's life to suck.
Oh yeah, trust me, I know. I've been there.
Yeah, you do.
So let me
Yeah,
ask
you
you,
do.
just right now. I mean, there's growing chatter and desperation for that third party that you were talking about,
Right.
that Elon wants to start.
Hmm.
You think that this Trump-Musk death match actually triggers a serious political realignment, or do you think that we're just stuck watching as these two egos smash into each other while basically the rest of us, drown in the fallout?
Look, I don't know that there is a world where any third party survives unless it's got an Elon Musk level of money behind it. But just having the money is one of those things like necessary, but not necessarily sufficient.
Right.
And so there are a lot of ways that third party could very much hurt the Republicans. There are a lot of ways that third party could mean nothing as well. It could end up meaning nothing. If it's Elon's weird like South African white supremacist bullshit, it's going to die. It's not going to do anything. If he markets it as limited government, fiscal responsibility, control the debt and the deficit, maybe. It's hard to see though, and there are a lot of. My grandmother used to have a Southern phrase. She used, "There's many a slip between the cup and the lip." That's where Elon is right now with that third party.
But do you think that a third party can actually survive in this system that
No, and
has been designed right for
right.
For two ruling
It is a
ones?
duopoly. This is a
Yes.
duopoly, and look, I have seen Democratic parties in states fight just as hard against the third party as Republican parties. They don't. Neither party wants to lose any part of their base, and so you will always get like a strong immune reaction from the incumbent party. Do I think we could be better off with more political parties? I absolutely do.
Oh wow!
I absolutely believe that if we had a more diverse political ecosystem in this country, we'd be better off.
So you actually believe that there is a constituency for a centrist, sanity first party, which is, I guess, somewhere in between Musk's libertarian techno fantasy,
right,
and Trump's authoritarian.
Yeah,
rule.
I mean, look, I think it's incredibly hard to do. I think it's almost impossible. I think people want it, but don't know how to get to it. I think people want it, but don't understand how to make it work practically. And the problem with most parties is with most third parties is they start out at the top. They try to elect a president. What they should be doing is electing county commissioners, city councilmen. They should be trying to elect state legislative members. They always go for the high and not the low, and the low is where you have to start with a third party.
Yeah, because I've always said that, the center, the ones that everybody keeps talking, oh, I'm just a centrist. I don't really care, Republican, Democrat. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm a social moderate.
Right.
I find that to be like an empty zip code.
Michael, it is the ultimate nothing burger politically.
Yeah, that is for sure.
I mean, it's the ultimate nothing burger. People are like, oh yes, you're a social moderate and a fiscal conservative, and yet at the end of the day, the people that tell you that over and over again, like 95% of the time, they vote for the party they've always voted for.
That's right.
Well, they either vote Republican or vote Democrat, because being a third party guy takes a lot of commitment. It's a tough job.
Well, I want to ask you this about third party then, because how do you even begin to build a third party when you have issues with gerrymandering, with voter suppression, with dark money that's baked into the foundation of the system? I remember when I was in prison,
Michael, those are all the important questions here. Those are the
when I was in
absolutely
Otisville,
vital questions.
Rick, when I was in Otisville, I read that book, Dark Money. And, and that's what I was thinking about when I was thinking about this question that I would ask you. You think it requires political meteor, or is there still like a path through this rubble? Because I don't see it.
Look, it's going to be incredibly difficult, Michael, and I mean difficult in ways that we can hardly even express, to convince people that the two-party system that they're very accustomed to is so fundamentally broken that they have to give up on it. People don't want to give up on these kind of things, even when they should want to give up on these kind of things. Somebody the other day said to me, he goes, "It's like smoking." He goes, there's a friend of mine who smoked for years. I never have, so I don't fully get it. But he said, it's like smoking. He goes, I knew every second I was a smoker that it was fucking killing me. It was terrible for me. And yet I stuck with it because I couldn't break the cycle. And, eventually he did break the cycle, but it's hard for people to break this political cycle in America as it exists today, because the two parties will fight like dogs against each other, but they'll fight even harder against a third party coming in to take to become a player in their world.
Yeah, I mean, and again, the whole system is fundamentally broken, where the only time, for example, that my Democratic Party goes into, for example, the inner city is right before elections, turning around and feeding them a bunch of bullshit, which is why they all felt so disenfranchised, which is how the Republicans, how Trump and his people figured out in order to get in there to chop away at little pieces. You got the gerrymandering again, you got the voter suppression, the dark money is the biggest bitch of them all. But I do want to ask you this, Rick, because the hour goes by quick. I know that you've got a million things going on.
They don't let me rest.
Well, you're not supposed to. Actually, I got two questions for you.
There you go.
This one and then a personal one.
Okay.
So if, and I mean, it's a big fucking if a third party could emerge from this wreckage, what do you think its founding principles should be? Not just policy, but moral clarity. Should it be built on sanity, on compassion?
It should be built. I think the fundamental tier of a new party should be, I think the fundamental tier should be following the law and the Constitution first. But the next big part of this, it's so important in my mind, is it's got to be an anti-corruption party. And by that means it ends the reign of lobbyists controlling how Washington, D.C. works. It ends members of Congress trading stocks based on their work in Congress. It ends the idea that some people can buy more justice or more power or more protection than other people. But I think about this a lot, Michael. It is a super important and I think incredibly vital question, because the reason Trump has managed to keep himself in a political power space is that Americans have no faith in the Democratic Party. They don't trust it. They don't believe in it. Even when it does things that they like, they're always like, oh, they're weak. They don't have clarity. The fact that Trump keeps holding on to a lot of these people is because they think he's strong. And it's got to be a party that would lead with strength and conviction and commitment, and asserting that if you're going to be in this new party, you're going to fight for everybody, not just for your friends. You're going to fight for a country that is fairer, a government that is smaller and smarter and better, and responsibility and sanity are a part of that. But it really is. I mean, I think the fundamental is anti-corruption.
Actually, I would just call it like we're not out of our fucking minds party. I mean, because I almost feel like, right? I mean, I almost feel like we are.
I'm not insane. That is my party.
Right. That's my party. We're not fucking insane.
We're not fucking crazy.
So look, Rick, as you know, I have always complimented you, always complimented the work coming out of Lincoln Project, based upon your ads, based upon the narrative that you constantly put out there. We talked about today this third party, right? This political mirage. Obviously, the Trump versus Musk feud, the gutting by Doge that caused the loss, in my opinion, of life there in Texas, and of course our big beautiful bill. What's next for Lincoln Project? Because unfortunately, it's not as if though any one of those four major topics do not deserve one of your cutting and biting, 60, 90-second ads. What's first, Michael, and what's next for Lincoln?
What's next for Lincoln is a project we're calling 26 and 26. We want to go into between 23 and 24 congressional races and 1 or 2 Senate races. Some of those are now starting to look a little more promising. We weren't going to do Senate, but now with North Carolina rolling into view, we think that's a very different political climate now. We want to win back the House. Our job at Lincoln has always been go out and win tough elections by pulling back some of those Republicans and some of those conservative-leaning independents from MAGA, from Trump, and putting them and getting them back in a position where they're voting for an end to this authoritarian nightmare. And we don't move giant numbers. We are surgeons in that regard. We move a small percentage of the population every election cycle. We won 17 out of the races we did in 2022. This year is as close to that as you can imagine. We're going to go in, like I said, 26 and 26. We're going to raise a good amount of money to go do that. We're going to get active early in a lot of these races. We want to help pull back some of those swing seats that are held by Republicans right now. Because as broken as the Democratic Party is in some ways, it is the only party that doesn't want to burn our democracy to the ground. And so we believe that if we do that successfully in 26, it slams the brakes on a lot of this Project 2025 nonsense. It slams the brakes on a lot of this corruption and insanity. It doesn't end it. It doesn't control it completely. But it's the one thing we can do at the Lincoln Project that we can deliver, modestly speaking, better than anybody, to go out there and communicate, set a narrative, tell a story, go into these districts and these states and communicate with voters to push them back into the sanity bucket, so that we can break the power that MAGA has with complete control of Washington right now.
Yeah, but the problem that I see, and again, I don't believe anybody comes up with ads better than Lincoln Project. And I say that not because, I think you're fantastic and you're here with me today on Mea Culpa, but because I do truly believe that. The problem that we also have is we have an incredibly weak Democratic Party.
We sure do.
I think this guy, Ken Martin, who just came in, replacing Jamie Harrison, all you did is you traded a white guy for a black guy, right? That's all that you did. There is no difference between the two. The fact that they are not out there speaking to the biggest of creators on social media, it's exactly why Trump won. And all of the great things that Lincoln Project does, all of the things that I would like to turn around and pat myself on the ass for, about, all the things that Midas Touch Network and others have been successful in accomplishing, all gets lost because there is no central point of contact. If this is the military, it all starts at the HQ, at the headquarters, right. And the orders go out that way to each of the different divisions. We don't have an HQ. My opinion,
Michael, this is something that I beat my head against the wall on with our Democratic friends and allies a lot. Is there are 1,000 little kingdoms in the Democratic Party.
Yep.
And the Republican Party is structured like a pyramid. Donald Trump is at the top. Everything flows downhill. Democratic Party is like a scattered board of a million tiny little power centers, none of which have,
enough
in my
power.
mind, a sufficient commitment to pure winning.
Yep.
A lot of them want to have their group do the thing that their group does and this and that. I'm sorry, guys. You got to sometimes go out and just kick the shit out of the bad guys. And that's what we do.
And that is what you do. Rick Wilson, thank you, my brother. Always great seeing you.
A pleasure, my friend. Come on. I'm going to get you to come on on a live with me next week.
Absolutely. And more importantly, as we continue these races, I'm always here for you and for these Democrats, always.
Thank you, my friend. All right,
Thank
folks.
you, brother.
Good seeing you.